Why was Howard sent to space despite his constant health problems? How many plot holes has Young Sheldon brought us? And what's wrong with Bernadette? Hi, my name's Dylan. TBBT is a great show, but it often sacrifices common sense for jokes. This means it creates mistakes, which we have gathered together for you in this video. Get ready for some enormous plot holes. Sheldon doesn't care about his spot. Bazinga! As we all know, Sheldon takes his spot very seriously. He talked about it in detail in the beginning of the show and never got tired of reminding everyone about it. This became a running joke in the series, and even the topic of a few episodes. Imagine our surprise when we noticed a few times where Sheldon gave his spot to others. Is it even possible?
Nope.
Penny's apartment. Remember Friends, where not-so-rich Monica and Rachel rented a large apartment in New York? This fact was one of the main criticisms of the show, and we totally understand why. Penny is probably living in the same parallel universe as the Friends characters, as she definitely can't afford to rent an apartment alone while Leonard and Sheldon need roommates to save money while being professors at Caltech. We're often shown that her salary as a waitress isn't enough to live on, yet the girl still manages to pay rent. She even has to use the guy's internet because she doesn't have enough money to pay her bills. Of course, in later seasons, thanks to Bernadette, Penny gets a good job, but this creates another plot hole. She doesn't have any experience in either medicine or pharmaceuticals, nor does she have a higher education. Apparently, Bernadette has great power in the company or knows how to influence her bosses. Where did Penny's friends go? Another plot hole that is hard not to notice is the absence of Penny's friends in later episodes of the show. At the very beginning of TBBT, we occasionally see Penny's friends, who are contrasts to the gang. Remember the Halloween party that Sheldon attended in the Doppler effect costume? Penny's friends slowly start disappearing, until the only friends she has left are Bernadette and Amy. We could argue that she changed because of her relationship with Leonard and her friendship with the other guys, so that's why her social circle changed. But on the other hand, a person like Penny has to have a lot of friends and acquaintances. It's hard to believe she could be friends with just the gang. Who sent Howard to space? Wolowitz had a dream, and the showrunners decided to make it come true in season 5. Although TBBT was a sitcom, Howard's trip to space was definitely fiction. In real life, nobody would ever choose him for such a serious task. During all 12 seasons, we kept hearing jokes about Howard's poor health, including problems with his heart. Nobody would ever send such a sick person into space, as it's an enormous stress for a human. What happened to Howard's education? How many times did Sheldon joke about Howard's education? And how many times did he answer that he got an MIT master's? A lot. However, how could Wolowitz study in Boston if he lived in Pasadena? In early seasons of the show, Howard lives with his mother, and it looks like he never left her. So how could he live without her for 6 years? Even if he received his bachelor's from another university, 2 years in Boston, far from Miss Wolowitz does not seem very realistic. Perhaps she moved to another city with her son? However, this isn't the only problem with Howard's education. Despite a very good education, a flight into space, and his service to the government, Howard still earns less than his wife. And apparently, a lot less. Perhaps Bernadette's salary is measured by millions? Raj vs. Hindi. Have you ever noticed that Raj's ability to speak Hindi keeps disappearing and coming back to him? In the first seasons of the show, he speaks his native language fluently, but by season 10, he seems to have forgotten it. In one of the episodes, Raj asks Sheldon to translate something from Hindi, as he's never studied it. It might seem strange, as he grew up in India and yet doesn't know his native language. However, it is possible, as some Indians study at English-speaking schools and live in states where everyone speaks English. The only fact we find confusing is that afterwards, Raj, Ruchi, and Howard watch cricket, and Raj easily translates everything Ruchi says. Changing friendships. Do you remember that cute episode flashback in which we find out more about the guys' pasts? We see how Leonard met Raj and Howard, who were already friends. When they contaminated the clean room, Howard said to Leonard, "You're just jealous that we were best friends before Raj came along," to which Leonard replied, "Why? Because you found someone you can push around?" Howard changes his best friends as if they're disposable. Everything's wrong with this elevator. The broken elevator is probably the longest-running joke in TBBT. The showrunners decided not to hide why it broke down and revealed the truth in Season 3. It turned out Leonard was testing an experimental rocket fuel formula that began to react dangerously. He took the fuel cylinder upstairs in the elevator, which began to explode just as Sheldon hastily pulled him out at the last second. Sounds about right, but why hasn't anyone ever tried to fix it? And the main question is, why hasn't anyone tried to investigate the case of the elevator explosion? However, those aren't all the problems connected with the elevator. In later episodes, Howard tries to understand what happened to the elevator and why it isn't working, but he was present at the experiment. What is this, a case of amnesia? Where do all these cats come from? Although Leonard is known for his allergies and asthma, Sheldon is also allergic to and hates cats. He even made a condition in the roommate agreement stating, "No cats allowed." However, in one of the episodes of Season 4, Sheldon brings home 6 cats and, surprisingly, nobody turns out to be allergic. I doubt he could forget about his allergy, or what's worse, ignore the roommate agreement. Apparently, the showrunners deliberately forgot about this fact in order to create a new joke. Bernadette and children. One of the largest and most serious plot holes is Bernadette's attitude towards children. Back when she was just engaged to Howard, the girl said multiple times that she didn't want children. As a child, her parents often weren't around, and she had to babysit a lot, so she didn't want that as an adult. The showrunners dedicated a few episodes to this problem, yet it still ended with 2 children. It's obvious that Bernadette's pregnancies were written into the plot because Melissa Rauch, who portrayed her, was pregnant in real life. What's not fair is that the doubts Bernadette must have been experienced were not shown. When she tells Howard she is pregnant, it looks like it doesn't bother her, although just a few years ago she would have been totally against it. In the last season, it is Penny who's facing a similar situation, as she didn't want children at first, but then she accepts her pregnancy. Do you remember Bernadette's reaction? She said Penny's desire to stay child-free was egotistic. Sheldon's a dancer. In the first few seasons, Sheldon refuses to dance, as he doesn't know how and doesn't want to learn. However, later it turns out he's quite the dancer. In Season 4, he reveals he knows a lot about dancing as his mother made him attend cotillion classes. All that could be limited to one joke, but we will never forget Sheldon's dance when he was trying to seduce Amy in one of the later seasons. It seems that this dance deserves to be a creator of another plot hole. Forgetful Penny. It's hard not to notice that over all these years, Penny has never mentioned her last name. We have a hunch about her full name, as in one of the episodes she was playing a computer game and chose the nickname Queen Penelope. All this is cute and gives Penny a certain charm, but have you ever noticed that she doesn't remember her father's name? In early seasons, his name is Bob, while later it's Wyatt. It seems that the scriptwriters just didn't feel like checking what they called him before. Why has Amy changed? Those who watch the show attentively notice that Amy's character changed drastically. If at first we meet her as Sheldon's clone, later she becomes a completely different person. Just a few seasons after she becomes friends with Penny and Bernadette, she loses her robotic style and even goes to parties sometimes. Changes to her character are so strong and unexplained that this whole situation looks like a plot hole to us. It seems that even her friends didn't notice these changes. We love Amy anyway, but we would like to see more of her character's development. Stewart has also suffered. We have already gotten used to the fact that this character is very self-confident, takes a lot of pills, and doesn't look very healthy. The later seasons of the show are full of jokes about Stewart and women, and we simply can't not remember the events of earlier episodes. Now, it's hard to believe, but he used to flirt with Penny, went out on a date with her, and almost ended up in her apartment. Later on, Stewart also went on a date with Amy before Sheldon interrupted them. Back then, he was just an ordinary guy and wasn't as self-confident as he was in later seasons. Perhaps his failed love life changed him so much that the showrunners just made his character an object for jokes. Raj could talk to girls before? We all remember that back in the beginning, Raj couldn't speak if a girl was present. Later on, he realized he could talk if he had a drink before, but it was only years later that he finally conquered his fear and remained calm in the company of girls. However, in one of the episodes of Season 1, he must have forgotten about this shyness as he joked in front of Penny.
Oh sure, cut the foreigner in half, there's a billion more where he came from.
Young Sheldon changed Sheldon's past. In TBBT, we kept hearing jokes about Sheldon's not-so-happy childhood in Texas. Young Sheldon was supposed to reveal more about his childhood and adolescence, but in fact, it changed a lot of TBBT details and created plot holes. For instance, older Sheldon has made it clear that his father was an alcoholic who constantly cheated on his mother. But young Sheldon reveals his father to be a hard-working family man who loves his wife and only drinks occasionally. His brother and sister also played a big role in Sheldon's upbringing, but they were only mentioned a few times in TBBT. Sheldon's grandmother is completely different in these two shows, and although she must have been one of the most important characters for young Sheldon, later in life he barely spoke of her. Such inaccuracies don't play well for young Sheldon, as we could forgive the plot holes in TBBT because it was a sitcom, but this show is more of a drama. We love both shows, but sometimes we're a bit picky trying to find some mistakes or inaccuracies. Doesn't it make watching the show more interesting? Especially if, like us, you're watching the show for the 5th time? Thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments what you think and subscribe to our channel.